Same forces that sought to enslave Black Americans physically have succeeded in creating new plantations of poverty programs and government handouts. They serve to reduce intelligent, thoughtful people into helpless victims, dependent upon the state for their very existence.
Most of the problems that we see today in our inner cities are a direct result of this social engineering of the 60s.
The welfare system has done exactly what slavery did to the Black family. During slavery, they took the fathers out of the home, and you know, the mother was there to raise the children, and the master of the plantation, I guess, fed them. 40 years ago, the Democrats came in along with the civil rights leaders and said to Black people, we're going to take care of you, but you can't have a father in the home.
Specifically because part of the means test, part of qualifications boil down to don't work, don't save, and don't get married. Because according to government, there's nothing more that they do need except us to pay for their home and send their kids to shoddy schools and give them a little bit of check every month with some food stamps. They set no goals for them at all. I used to live on welfare. One of the questions on the form during the 80s and all the way until we changed it in the 90s was, did anyone go back to school? And if you put yes, you were going to be penalized.
When you leave the plantation, the white Democrat man hates you, and the rest of the blacks that are on the plantation hates you, and the blacks on the plantation then begin to call you an Uncle Tom. They say, you Uncle Tom nigger, you, that's all you are.
I know that as a conservative Black woman, I've been called an Uncle Tom. I've been accused of being paid off by the Republicans.
Over the last 15 years, I've been called nigger, Uncle Tom, a sellout. I've had guns drawn on me. My telephone's been tapped.
Black activists on the right who try to escape the left's liberal plantation often are vilified and excoriated, not as being incorrect or having unfortunate views or having perhaps the wrong outlook on taxes or spending or whatever, but as not sufficiently Black, inauthentically Black, traitors to the race, and a lot of us have been called very, very ugly names. You are Black, therefore you must think this, and no, you may not think independently. I can think of nothing more bigoted than to look at someone and say, based on the color of your skin, this is what you have to think.
I was recently talking with a group of major African American bishops. And with those bishops, I pulled out the original documents because we have literally tens of thousands of original documents out of Black history, out of all this history. And I'm showing all these legislators, all the first Black U.S. senators that were Republican, all the state leaders that were Republican, Black leaders. And I'm showing the records out of Congress where the Democrats say, yes, we started the Klan. That was our, so going through all of this, and these Black bishops asked me, how come we don't hear this in our history books?
The Black colleges used to publish a Journal of Black Business Success. But in order to get the civil rights laws to apply to Blacks, we had to present ourselves as victims of racism. So in order to do that, we had to cease publishing the accounts of our success.
The right to vote for African Americans today has nothing at all to do with the 1965 Voting Rights Act, contrary to most people's opinion. The right to vote was given as one of the 3 civil rights amendments post-Civil War. You have the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. In that vote in Congress in 1865, January and February 1865, the Senate first and the House, 100% of Republicans voted to end slavery, 118 out of 118. 82 Northern Democrats in Congress, only 19 voted to end slavery. Only 23% of Northern Democrats wanted to end slavery. We roll on through, and in the South, slavery has been ended. So the 14th Amendment was passed in Congress to give civil rights to all those emancipated slaves, all the freedmen. That vote in Congress, not a single Democrat in the House or the Senate voted for the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. They passed the 15th Amendment in 1870 that says every African American can vote. So voting rights for African Americans come from the 15th Amendment passed in 1870, which, by the way, not a single Democrat in the House or the Senate voted for the 15th Amendment.
So the Republican Party was birthed out of this. And from the get-go in the Republican Party, there was a clear statement that this party was against slavery. This thing was wrong. It was evil and wrong and must be abolished.
They came out with their first platform shortly thereafter, tiny little platform. It's only got 9 planks in the platform. 6 of the 9 planks dealt with civil rights. We want slavery ended. We want segregation ended. We want full civil rights. It was a civil rights party birthed out of a number of atrocious pro-slavery decisions.
The hypocrisy of liberals and media around how they reacted to Dodd's praise of Byrd on the Senate floor, and the reaction of Trent Lott praising an old man that was going to be dead within a year. Contrast that with the absolute silence of the liberal media around Bob Byrd being praised. I mean, a Klansman, a Klan leader, not just a member of the Klan, not just influenced by the Klan, but a operational leader of the Klan.
One of the things that has mystified me most over the last few years is to look at the civil rights establishment and have them regard the news of Colin Powell becoming America's first black Secretary of State, and then to see Condi Rice eventually become America's first black female Secretary of State, and not hear some of them say, look, we have differences in opinion over their policies, we don't necessarily approve of everything they believe in, but this is a great step forward for Americans and black Americans in particular. What you hear instead is that, well, they're tokens and maybe they're wannabe whites. What it says basically, the people who argue that way, is that we black people don't have control over our own minds. We're not allowed to think what we wish, and we're essentially supposed to walk around in a racial plantation where everybody's liberal, everyone believes in the Democratic Party, and in that respect we're not really men and women, but sort of like cattle.
Condi Rice and Colin Powell we don't know if they're really black. But the drug dealer on the corner is black.
We have a lining up of forces today. There are those who would say everything that has to do with God should be eradicated from the public landscape, from the courtrooms. We want to take "In God We Trust" out of the money. We want, one nation under God out of the flag. We don't want to pledge allegiance and relate to any sovereign God, no eternal transcendent presence at all. We don't want to do that. There are those on that side. And there are those who want God's presence. They see God's presence in all things. And there is a battle royal going on.
If Dr. King were alive, he'd be proclaiming Jesus Christ. And it would be interesting to see if the media would film and follow that message, because that's who they'd have. If they had Dr. King today, he'd be a prophet of God.
The abortion law is a violation of life, and slavery was the violation of personal liberty. So there are many areas where it's similar. And I'm of the opinion that, as with slavery, the nation will have to settle the abortion discussions similarly, because it is a big moral question and there is no scientific or technical answer. We're not going to be able to go state by state and say, well, maybe if we make a little concession here, a little concession there. If it's wrong once, it's wrong all the time. And here's another one that I've had experience with personally. I've been in and out of their abortion mill one after another time. And yet some will say, well, you shouldn't have done it so much. Why didn't you just use birth control? Why would you use birth control if abortion is legal and there's nothing wrong with it? And if there is something wrong with it, then why is it legal? And that's the same question that was asked during slavery.
And this issue about black churches and having an issue with regard, I mean, every time there's an election, a Democratic election, they all parade through our churches for that weekend before the election and give their little spiel and try to capture the vote that they already know they have. And so they do allow people to come into the churches and speak on politics if it's the politics that they want.
Dr. King and her pastor, Bishop Eddie Long, led a march in Atlanta, Georgia with hundreds of thousands of people on behalf of marriage between a man and a woman. And Bernice said at that time, she says, I know deep in my sanctified soul that my dad didn't march for same-sex marriage.
I want more individual blacks say, I'm tired of it. I'll pay the price. Call me an Uncle Tom. But I'm going to make my own life. I'm going to live as an individual. One hopes that one by one people peel away, stop being so intimidated by this sort of Saddam Hussein leadership we have. But that's a very powerful leadership. And it really has us in the grip of fear. But those of us who are called black conservatives are the freest people in the United States. We don't owe anybody anything.